again, friends, and welcome back to my channel. My name's Amy, and I'm glad you decided to join me for this fun video. Today we are going to be reading chapter 4, so let us not delay, and I have my bookmark in here, so let's just jump right back into this adventure. Chapter 4. By dawn's first light, Leon and Castillo were on their way again. They paid for the access to pass into the eastern coast territories. Unlike the western plains, there was barely any grassland here. These people relied on the sea, and most of the activities centered on the water. A large coastline is what they stepped onto crossing over. In some areas, there were marshy bogs with a light shade of brown reeds growing from the murky depths below. Listen, Leon, here they are very superstitious. Address me simply as Castillo, no legend. Understood? He understood and nodded to her. The call of the seagulls could be heard. The smell of fish remains hung in the air. Castillo got off her animal and led it to a supply lodge. They tied up their horses to a post in front of the lodge. We need to buy 2 good cloaks for the both of us. Now, they don't hold women in high regard, so I'm not going to speak. You have to do all the talking. Leon smiled a little. They now entered the shop. The shop itself was filled with many different odds and ends. Leon guessed the owner most likely got these things by trading for them. Brass cups hung from the Brass cups hung from hooks. Garments were stacked on shelves. Castillo kept her head down. She knew the owner was watching her. Ah, sir, good morning, or afternoon is more like it. Leon smiled politely. He could smell the owner's foul breath upon his face. A pretty thing you got over there. Perhaps if you find something that you like, we can make a trade. Huh? He said gleefully, rubbing his hands together. Castillo was about to pick up a plate of gold when Leon came over to her and slapped her hand hard. Didn't I tell you to... I didn't tell you to pick that up, did I? Well, answer me, he said gruffly to mean business. The owner obviously enjoyed watching this. Forgive me, master. It won't happen again, she said in a shy, timid voice. He nodded and she moved away. Leon came over to the shelf and pulled 4 cloaks down and inspected them. He was a hunting guide, so he knew what to look for in a cloak. I'll take these, nothing else, Leon said firmly, to let the owner know he didn't want to spend any more money. Once Leon put the 6 gold coins down, the owner took them, but still had his eyes upon Castillo. He came up next to her and put his large fat arm around her shoulders. Would you like to come home with me, my pretty? I would pay handsomely for her, he said, now running his tongue over his lips. Castillo merely gave a small smile at him, but said nothing. Leon put the cloaks in his backpack. It is very tempting for sure, my good sir, but tonight she will be all mine. Besides, I hate to have her once another has touched her. It's unsatisfying, he said slyly and winked at the man. The owner regretfully took his arm off of her. Now, my lovely, give the man a kiss for helping us, and we'll be on our way. If looks could kill, Leon would be dead in the shop. Castillo came close to the man's face and mustered up the courage. She put her lips on his grizzled face and pecked him once on the cheek. Good girl. Come on, before I change my mind about that offer. She was out of there in a wink. The owner was very satisfied with his business. When they were long gone out of sight, Castilia moved the back of her hand across her mouth to wipe away the odor of the man's smell. Sorry. Now what do we do? Leon asked. Castilia looked at him. We're going to visit a friend of mine, the Erseers. They rowed some more to an old large ship. As they stepped in, it was quite comfortable. There was a small fireplace, a table to which to sit, and chairs and rugs. There was an older man in his late 30s who entered with a lady on his arm. They had red hair with streaks of blonde hair. Welcome, legend and hunter of the orbs, the man said, as if they knew them already. Houplin, Haranda, we come here in time of need, Castilia said. She bowed, and Leon did the same. The two looked at each other in a way that showed they did not understand. Finally, Houplin spoke. You are late. We thought you would be here much sooner. Why did you delay if you needed our help? Castilia looked down and turned her head downward, not wanting to look at the man in the face. The young man had been still. It was my fault. The prince attacked my family, and the legend here told her I needed to see it for myself. The man and woman glanced at each other. Then the woman did a single nod. She came up to Leon and took his hand in hers. Come, hunter. Come with me. He nodded, and without looking back at Castilia, followed her into another part of the ship. Houplin and Castilia began to speak in a cryptic tongue. In the furthest room of the ship, where Haranda and Leon stopped, she shut the door behind her. On the walls were many kinds of weaponry. There were also painted many stars of different colors displayed too. In the middle of the room was a large blanket. Spread out on two opposite sides of the blanket were two pillows. The woman indicated with her hand that she wanted Leon to sit on one of the pillows. It felt good on Leon's rump. It was a comforting feeling from those long hours in the saddle riding. Leon sat cross-legged on the pillow. Haranda did the same with the other pillow. She mysteriously studied his face as if deciding if he was hiding something from her. She smiled unexpectedly, and Leon looked worried. You will complete your task, but it will bring you both sorrow and joy. I will show you if you desire. Leon considered this. One part of him told him to do it so he could prepare himself. Another part of him was trying to warn him not to go with it. What would Trigger do? He thought. He thought to himself. Trigger would do the right thing. Leon breathed out and answered, No, Haranda, I don't want to see. She cocked her head to one side of and spoke to him as if someone else was in the room with them. You were right. He did choose wisely. Leon's eyes scanned the room, and he got up and ran a hand over some things. Trigger was now standing by a table with odds and ends on it. Leon then came near the table. He saw a tubular object and picked it up. Decorated on the outside of it were the words fire, water, land, air, and spirit. He pulled the lid off to see what was inside. There was a black velvet tray that came forth with 5 medium-sized dents in it. He looked up with a mysterious expression on his face when Miranda came up to him. The woman had many tiny seashells braided into her long, thick, wavy hair. On the ceiling was a large shelled mobile hanging. "I'll take this," he said. He put the tubular object around his shoulder with a thick, tough leather strap. They were both silent. "You have chosen wisely again. Come, Castilia is waiting." Miranda led Leon back to where Castilia and Couplin were when they had arrived a while ago. To Leon, there seemed to be an understanding of perhaps more than friendship between her and Couplin, but he didn't make his theory known in case he was wrong and didn't want to embarrass her. Leon waited a moment. "May the elements protect you," she spoke. They nodded and repeated, "May the elements protect you." Then Couplin took Castilia's hand, kissed the top of it tenderly. She smiled at him as she and Leon headed for the door and left the ship. Leon didn't realize how much time had passed. A light, dusky haze was now visible. They headed for an inn for the night. Leon held the door open for Castilia. The inn was very noisy with many seafaring men there. Many women were also there, some rudely laughing along with the men. Leon came to the counter while Castilia stood behind him. "We need a room and some food," Leon said aggressively. The man behind the counter moved a little to get a better look at Castilia. He moved his tongue over his yellowish teeth. "I'm a guessing you want only one bed," he said with a crooked smile and a wink. Leon nodded. "Something like that." He put his arm around Castilia to show possession of her. Castilia gave a weak, almost innocent smile to the man. "I'll show you to your table," he said. "No, if you wouldn't mind, I am a man of actions, so if you would please show us to our room." Leon trailed off. The large man shook his shiny bald head and chuckled. Not long after, they were in the room with a tray of 2 large plates of fresh fish and vegetables. "Can I ask you something, Castilia? Did we come here so I could get the gift from Miranda? And if these people hate magic and are superstitious, why keep them around?" Castilia began to nibble on some of the food with the utensils provided before she replied. "Couplin and Miranda are not just seers. They are some of the best healers around. This is the only reason they haven't killed them." Leon slumped in the bed. Castilia continued to eat. "Is it too bold to ask what language you were speaking to Couplin?" She wiped her face. We were speaking my language, the language of legends." Leon now got up and began to eat as well. They were both silent for a moment with their own thoughts. "Do you think it is unusual that we haven't heard or seen anything from the prince?" "Doesn't feel right, does it?" Leon said, reading Castilia's mind. "Yes, and that worries me." Later, a few hours later, there was a knock on the door. Castilia was going to open it, but thought it would be better if Leon answered the door. He opened it enough so only his torso, with no shirt, was visible to the onlooker. "Yes, may I help you?" he said. It was the same man who showed them to their room. He smiled. "Sorry to disturb you, but everyone's gathering at the docks. A sailor caught a witch." Leon looked at the man. He was clearly not going away without an answer. Leon sighed. "Come on, woman, get dressed. We've got somewhere to be," he said gruffly. Soon both Castilia and Leon were by the docks with most of the other townspeople. A young lady, much younger than Castilia, was tied down to a chair attached to a pulley system. Then a gangly man in priest robes approached. He glared at the lady. This is a witch. She bears the marks of one. Show it, he said in an authoritative voice. His assistant moved the victim's blonde hair and revealed the marking of the small letter capital L upon her neck. Castilia focused hard on the priest and began to breathe heavy with anticipation. Proceed, and may the elements forgive you, the priest said as his assistant lowered her into the water. Leon stood there with the others, stone-faced, as the girl was fully submerged several times into the water. The young teen girl who clearly had been beaten had multiple lashes to her back, struggled and shouted out defiantly. Ooh, my hand's falling asleep. No, I am not a witch. I am innocent. The priest, he forced himself. She was cut off from finishing the sentence as she was forcibly submerged again. Leon stole a glance around at the onlookers. None of them seemed to care that this young girl might not be guilty. How could people stand to watch this injustice? This time, she was left down there until there was no more splashing. At one point, Castilia had looked away. We must look to the future. The future has no magic in it. Everyone cheered loudly at the prince's words. Prince Nero had been laying low for a few days, waiting. Yes, things were going nicely. Nero stood in his throne room looking at the territories he still did not have control over. Yet. He adjusted his sapphire ring on his right hand lightly. I want the eastern coast. Write a proclamation to the people of the land, telling them that I want what is best for them, and whoever finds an orb will be greatly rewarded by the prince himself. Nero told his captain and told him to send 24 forces just in case of trouble. The captain left with his orders. Nero came back and stroked his raven's black, glossy feathers. I'm coming, legend and hunter. I'm coming. Then he went down to his dungeon to see and torture the prisoners. It was one of his favorite things to do. After a while, he got bored and came back up. He told Blinkin and Rifa he needed a word. Go to the family's house and take the husband. Don't touch the wife, but the husband. Bring him here, alive. These orders pleased the wizard and witch very much. They smiled and bowed before carrying out the orders of their master. Blinkin and Rifa disguised themselves as two beggars. They held hands and chanted a spell. Over and over they chanted. The room they were in began to spin wildly until they both had to close their eyes. When they opened their eyes again, they were standing in the western plains. Leon's mother had moved there from her home in the southern woods. Blinkin asked a friendly couple where Leon's home was, telling the couple they were relatives of Leon. Glad to help, the couple willingly gave them directions and offered to show them the way if they wanted. The two smiled at each other and did have the couple lead them home to the home. Once they arrived, the couple told them to enjoy their visit and left them to knock on the door. Rifa put her hand on the door and knocked twice. They didn't have to wait long before the door opened. Please, dear lady, my dear frail sister is in need of a drink of water, Blinkin pleaded in a way that was convincing. June, being a caring person, immediately opened the door for them and they entered without delay. You poor thing, come sit by the fire and rest. I'll be right back. June left them unattended. When they were alone, Rifa asked, Where do you think the husband has gotten to? Blinkin didn't have time to answer before June came back with 2 cups of water. In turn, each took a cup. Thank you, dear lady. We are both grateful for your kindness. June smiled in a pleasant way. That's what neighbors are for, their host said. The two just nodded and said nothing. Blinken put his cup on his knee and asked in a friendly tone of voice, "Forgiven, old man, but are you married? If not, Might you consider myself?" Blinken, of course, knew this answer to his question, but in matters such as these, it was often critical to keep the mood light and non-threatening. Rifa rolled her eyes when Blinken asked his question to the mother. June burst out in light laughter. "Oh dear, you old tease, you! I have the unfortunate news that I am indeed married and going to be until I die." Blinken shook his head sadly. "Well, do you think I could perhaps meet this man who has taken love at first sight away from me?" June thought about this for a few minutes. "My husband is out hunting at this moment, but he should be back at sundown. Could I convince you two to stay and dine with us?" Rifa spoke. "Oh, bless you, dear lady, no, we wouldn't want to intrude. Besides, you must save food for your family." At the word family, June fell silent. "Did I say something to cause offense?" Rifa asked as she put a hand on June's shoulder. June shook off this lonely feeling in her heart before she answered. "No, you didn't cause offense. It is myself and my husband now. My sons—" She trailed off, then spoke. "My sons are making their way in the world." Lincoln and Rifa looked at each other. "Letting them go their own way is the hardest thing. What is their trade? What is their trade to be? A huntsman?" Rifa asked. June slowly looked up at them. "Yes, one is a hunting guide and the other is an adventurer." Lincoln shook his head again. The three chatted and helped a bit with the housework. An aroma of stewed meat began to drift into both the wizard and witch's noses. The smell was tempting. Once again, the two were sitting at the table as June was finishing getting the meal prepared. The door swung open and John stood there in the doorway with a slain deer across his shoulders. The wife greeted him warmly. "My love, we have guests tonight," she said, very pleased with herself. John was more cautious after the attack of the ravens the prince had sent. He just gave a single nod of his head and acknowledged them. "Come help me with this deer. I could use your help." Blinken got up and spoke to Riva, using his mind power to do so. "I'll do it when they are outside. Take care of the woman and be quick." Rifa nodded as as if encouraging him to go help with the husband. She knew better. Once they were alone, the animal lay on the ground. John spoke his mind. "I want you and your companion to leave. I don't know who you are, but after the meal, never come back." John's voice was cold and hard. "You are right not to trust strangers, good sir. We will do as you say. I'll even shake hands on it," Lincoln said, and held out his hand to John. A shake of the hand meant there was an understanding and goodwill. John hesitated, sighed, and extended his hand to Blinken. A terrible mistake. The strike was fast and hard. John didn't have time to pull back. He collapsed in a heap at Blinken's feet. Inside, Rifa was saying to the wife, "Dear lady, you have to be so kind. Dear lady, you have been so kind to us. I want to do something for you." With a whack, Rifa gave her such a blow, June crumpled motionless on the floor. The witch smiled and spat on the host. "You should have given Prince Nero a son, or at least one of yours. Thank you for the soup." Just then, Blinken came back into the house. "Come, let's get the husband and leave. We've got what we've come here for." She followed him back outside where John was bleeding from a poison-tipped knife wound. Just like the way they had come, Lincoln and Riva chanted, with John propped up between them. Leon and Castilla stood by the well. They were about to attempt to retrieve the first orb. Each was mute. They were still thinking of the young legend that had died earlier that day. Castilla was keeping something from Leon. She would tell him soon, but now was definitely not the time to tell him that. She remembered back when she had healed Leon's parents without hesitation. The secret she kept from him was that legends healed themselves or others if they chose 4 times. No matter how fatal the wound was, but on the 5th time they would die. That was why Leon's father had such a change of heart. She had used up 2 times for them when she could have let them die. Are the ropes tied tight? She was jolted back to reality by Leon's voice asking her a question. She had been tying a rope harness for him to go into the well. She tested the knots by tugging on both sides. Yes, it's good. Wait. Shh, someone's coming. They ducked down and slowly peered from behind the well. I'm telling you, I think that young man and woman are legends. I saw them send the witch's body away. Excuse me. She must have died 4 times. Castilla knew what the man was talking about. Leon recognized the man's voice and face in the fading light before becoming night. It was the same man who they first met in his shop to buy the cloaks. He was speaking to the priest. They couldn't get the orb now. Leon had an idea of how to get to the inn safely. He whispered to Castilla. She nodded, and Leon put his plan into action. Castilla found a pebble and tossed it into the priest and man's direction. The sudden noise distracted them. Leon made his move and came staggering forward, singing to himself. Hey, what are you guys doing here? The priest said harshly. Have you seen my lady? I thought I left her out here, he said, in a tone of drunkenness and confusion. The 2 men both gave each other a look. Here I am. A sweet, soft voice came in between the priest and the owner of the shop. Castilla's outfit was ripped slightly, and her hair was mangled up a bit. The 2 men could guess what they had been doing here. You old fool, you worry over nothing, the priest said, and opened his arms to take Castilla. She played along. When she was close, she gripped her sword and plunged it into the priest's chest. The priest had a startled, surprised look on his dying face. Castilla pulled out her weapon. You will never again take an innocent legend. May the elements punish you. She then spun around and held the shopkeeper with the point of her sword. Blood glistened off the blade. There was vengeance in her eyes. You saw nothing, unless you want to end up like your friend. Get out of my sight before I change my mind. Sweat poured from the man's face. He backed away slowly until he was out of sight. Leon came up next to her. Come, tomorrow is another day. Come, Castilla. She breathed out slowly. She bent down to clean her blade. Then, feeling the ground, she cocked her head to listen for some hidden sound. Leon did the same and asked in a low voice, What is it? What do you hear? Soldiers. They will be here soon, she said with a dangerous tone. The captain of Prince Nero's army had come a long way. They had only rested twice, once at a lake and second at a small village many, many miles away now. The man under his command knew that if they spoke out or complained, it would be the death of them. They wouldn't be given an honorable death either. it would be carried out by others in the same rank. As they came upon the last village before they entered the eastern coast, they took rest at a shelter for the night. The captain let the men do as they wished, but once morning came, it was down to business again. The prince didn't like to be kept waiting. The captain lay in bed with a woman from the inn. She was pretty enough and served his purpose. He thought the people of the East were going to be easy to persuade. Inside, he hoped they wouldn't be. It was exceedingly more fun when they weren't cooperative. Although, on the other hand, if they didn't do the job right, the prince would punish all of them. He shuddered at the thought of the prince's horrible taste for blood. His controlled rage was more dangerous. You never knew when he was going to strike, and by the time you did, you would be dead. So that is end of chapter 4. Thank you all so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. If you like this book and want to read on your own or follow along with me, it can be bought on Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, Apple iBooks, and lots of other places. Also, in the comments down below, let me know if you are enjoying this book. And if you do, please give this video a big like, subscribe, share with friends and family, and I will see you guys tomorrow for chapter 5. Bye-bye for now, everyone.